Welcome to the Paying Attention Podcast. I'm Brent Beasley. I lead Fort Worth Education Partnership. The title of the podcast comes from a Mary Oliver poem that's called Instructions for Living a Life. And it's a very short poem. It's Instructions for Living a Life. Pay attention, be astonished, tell about it. And so I'm inviting people to be my guests on this podcast who I think we need to be paying attention to. And who have something to say about the education landscape in particular in Fort Worth. And so today I'm very pleased to have Marisol Herrera and Taylor Duncan as our guests. And they are two people who are worth paying attention to in their own right. And also you two are involved with something that I think is really worth paying attention to in Fort Worth right now, which is the Impact Mentorship Program with the Fort Worth ISD Council of PTAs. And so I just want to jump right in on that with the two of you. First of all, thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thank you.
Being here, yeah. So can you first of all just explain what is this impact program and what your roles are with that?
Mm-hmm. So initially, Taylor and I met and we started thinking about the idea of this impact mentorship program. It's actually brand new. We just started it. This is our first pilot year.
Yeah, we met about a year ago, formally met this month in May,
mm-hmm.
roughly
last year.
Yep.
So essentially, I, at the time and still, was involved with the Fort Worth ISD Council of PTAs. And so what the Fort Worth ISD Council does is we basically look over all of the local PTAs on, the Fort Worth ISD campuses. And our role is mostly like helping them out, answering questions, mm-hmm. Putting them in touch with resources, things with the Texas PTA that are above us. So that's how Taylor reached out to me because,
mm-hmm.
She had my contact. She was, you were the local treasurer.
Mm-hmm.
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 And so she reached out to me that way. And I was at the time the vice president. And so we started talking about, some ideas that she had, and I'll let you tell a little bit more about that idea. But that's how the whole program gets started.
Right.
Yeah. I had served my kids' school, local elementary school in my neighborhood. We got involved in PTA when they entered school, and we live in a neighborhood where there's 5 schools within very short proximity, and we all share the same community center. So because of kids, I got to know other parents at other schools. And got connected to how some of the other PTAs were doing. Our PTA has historically, at my kids' elementary school, has been really small, had met some basic needs and functions, but has historically been a pretty small organization. And where some of the other schools that my kids were where their friends attended, had much bigger budgets. They were doing more for their community, just a little bit more robust support of their school. So I started asking questions, and I was like, how do y'all do this? How do you do this? Where are you getting funding for this? How do you facilitate, volunteers? And several years ago, the 5 schools that are in the near South Side came together to try to just collaborate and share best practices, share ideas. One of the things that, the finances were a very large disparity. Yeah. And there were a couple of the schools who had more money than they could spend on their school. And as a nonprofit, you're supposed to spend everything that you raise, but they just had really robust funding traditions that just, kept going. And there was a desire to give some money to the other smaller PTAs who had needs they didn't have funding to meet. And we realized you can't do that. You can't you can't fundraise for one nonprofit and give to another without meeting, general. It had to be approved in the budget and all kinds of stuff. So long story short, we to help kind of, at least from the funding standpoint, level the playing field some. We did a joint fundraiser. We did a Back to Public School Bash at our local community center. I get emotional thinking about this because it was such a great community moment where these 5 schools who everybody cares so much about their local school community, but we're really looking beyond just their own school and trying to figure out how do we help the kids over there, how do we help the families over there, because we're all part of one larger family, one larger community. And it was really successful. We did it for 2 years. We did this joint fundraiser where we shared the funds to the schools who needed it most. Those who didn't take part. And that kind of core group stayed in communication for a few years, not just sharing funds, but also sharing volunteers. Like, hey, we need people to come work this book fair. We don't have enough parents because it's all working parents. It's during the week. Who can kind of work this book fair? And there was probably 10 of us on a text thread that just for several years kind of kept supporting one another. But in PTA, as roles change, people, their kids go on to middle school or new presidents, new treasurers come in. We wanted to figure out a way to keep that going and to look beyond just our neighborhood and how could there's got to be a need for this beyond just the South Side, the near South Side, and to other parts of the city. And so that's when I was like, well, there's the Council of PTAs. Yeah. I'll reach out there. And I had met Marisol at a advocacy day in Austin. And so I cold emailed her and asked her to coffee.
That's great. I love that you shared that because it's really the core of what I understand this program is about, is noticing that disparity among different schools. You wanted to try to figure out a way to help, and you found there was a barrier there. So now y'all are trying to address that through this
yeah, and I wasn't the only one. It was just kind of serendipitous. A couple different people had reached out in a similar time frame.
So before I became vice president, I served as president of the Fort Worth ISD Council for 2 years. And during those 2 years as president, this was an ongoing sort of idea that I had, that I was like, how can we increase equity across our district? I mean, when I came in as a president, I set that as my goal. I was like, we're going to increase equity across our district, knowing that these disparities, exist. This is something that has existed in our district. And may I say just PTAs in general across our state, right?
Life.
Right. Yes, it's like within the Fort Worth ISD, if we're just going to focus on here, we have, and we all know this, we have some schools that just have the infrastructure where they can do a lot of fundraising, where they can do a lot of these things where people are plugged in. And then we have other sides of our district where that's just not the case for whatever reason, right? There's lots of reasons.
Right.
And it's very, very complex. But I kept thinking, like, we have the structure here, at least within the PTA, right? Where we can try to do something with this. Like the structure's in place, the resources are in place, the people are in place. Like, if we can just find a way to leverage this, right? So for 2 years, I was bouncing different ideas around. I tried different things, didn't get a lot of traction. I remember I started like a mentoring program, actually, my first year, but it was hard to find the people who were interested in doing that and then find the ways to make that sustainable. We might get one-offs where you would like meet with somebody and like share some information. But like Taylor was saying, it's like, how can we keep this? How can we scale this? And how can we make it sustainable? That's kind of like where I kept hitting the wall.
Yeah. Can we talk about some of the ways like that schools benefit from the resources that the PTAs, the money that they raise? Like, how is that actually impacting? Some schools are getting these benefits and some are not.
Because Marisol's got a high schooler, and so has been in public school system longer than I have as a parent. And I had this view of PTA that is very different than what I've actually experienced before getting involved in it. And you can speak more to a lot of, more robustly what PTA does. But I think for what most people don't understand is it is a mechanism, a partnership between parents and the school, and the community. You don't just have to be parents. It can be neighbors, grandparents, any community that is invested in the support of a school and of all students in that school to meet the needs of that school community more robustly than often the funding and the support from the district can, and more nimbly. It's just you can act a lot faster, and from little things like, one of the first fundraisers that our school took on that I was a part of is we provide coats. We make sure every kid has a coat. And so the teachers help identify students that, as the weather is getting chillier, don't have coats, and the PTA would go and buy and make sure that everybody had one. That was really the main fundraiser for many years. That's where most of our money went, because that's all the money we had was to make sure that students had coats. It then morphed into other financial things that we were doing, like we bought a PA system because we have this beautiful auditorium and just wonderful music programs and no way to hear it, to other things like facilitating, field day and selling concessions and programs for the parents to learn things. But what are some of the other main things impactful things that PTA does?
So I think what you said there, the fact that they have that flexibility to provide a lot of things is really key. I actually just finished my master's in public school building leadership. So I got a deeper understanding, because I was a classroom teacher for about 10 years. And then I moved out of the classroom and became a specialist. But now I'm trying to be a campus leader, right? So I got a little bit of an insight as to like, how is it that just all of these resources are allocated in the first place? And the thing that I think a lot of parents and just community members don't realize is that there's so many rules and policies and things that campus leaders have to follow in the way that they allocate resources, right? So there could be a situation and this is something that I run across to a lot when I'm helping local, like elementary schools, for example. The parents will come together and say like, hey, we're going to have this meeting, we're going to have this event, Can the principal just buy food for everybody? Like we just want to have some food available for people to come. The answer most of the time is no, they can't. It's like, why not? Right? It's like, so there's this like tension. It's like they don't understand, like, why can't they, doesn't the school district have the money? Doesn't the principal have the money? But it's like being able to understand, it's like the money is there, but it's like allocated for something else. And like the mechanism in place for how to access that gets complicated once the school year starts going, right? Yeah. So that is what PTAs have, is that flexibility. Now,
we had a situation, I'm just thinking a couple of years ago where a school asked us, the Fort Worth Education Partnership, could you pay for balloons and food for our teacher appreciation lunch that we're having? We have the money, but we can't spend it on that for some reason. I don't remember what the reason was, and it was not very much money at all, but they asked us to pay for it because they just couldn't.
Was it the school or was it?
It was the school.
The school.
Yeah, they don't have, right.
Yeah. The thing is though, and I want to make this clear before we go, it's not just about funding.
Right.
It is one of the things that PTA can help with, and we do have a little bit more flexibility. We do have our own policies and our own structures that we have to follow. But the funding aspect of it really is to meet any gaps and any needs that there might be, right? And so we really, as the council, we help local PTAs plan that out ahead of time and say, look at your community, look at what the needs are, and then make a plan so that you're fundraising for a reason. And I think this is where it gets a little bit tricky with the fundraising, right? Because some schools, not a lot, but some schools just fundraise. Yeah. And so they have this kind of extra, and like Taylor said, sometimes it's just tradition. It's like we always do this fundraiser and we just...
Right. I think it probably started as because we have these needs, but now it's become part of that community's tradition. It's that just they look forward to the art auction, the gala, the whatever.
My kids went to high school at Pascal. It was an annual thing, the big silent auction banquet. Everybody got dressed up and spent lots of money on all kinds of things that were donated.
Which is like, it's a great event, but at a certain point, it's like once you are fundraising so much and you don't really have a need for it on your campus,
there are plenty of other campuses that have need.
You have a surplus, right? So we try to really be clear about that. It's like you should be fundraising for a specific need. And then of course, if you're a brand new PTA, your needs greatly outweigh your ability to fundraise, right? And so this is where we were like, how can we do the resource matching a little bit so that we can drive more equity? But the other big part of what PTAs provide is leadership development for parents and then programs. We have a lot of resources at the state level that we can provide to locals where we're like, you're not just fundraising, you're providing information, you're providing leadership development, we're doing advocacy at the state level. So it's like, we want to make sure that all of those things continue. But again, put yourself back in the mindset of a brand new, really small group of parents who just started. If you barely have money or the ability to buy snacks for a meeting to bring people to the campus, just to even talk about a program or an advocacy, like these things are just really hard to do.
Yeah.
To learn more about Fort Worth Education Partnership, check out our website, fortworthep.org. And we are on Instagram at FortWorthEP. So we're talking about PTA, Parent Teacher Association. I'm remembering as we're talking that my parents were the presidents of the PTA of my elementary school at some point along the way. But let's just kind of go back to basics a little bit and talk about what is a PTA and what role does it play in the school, both for the school, but also for the development of parents as leaders. And because I think that's big part of what y'all are trying to do with this impact program.
Yeah.
For sure. So I'd like to tell the story of Dolores Huerta Elementary. So I think it's a really nice story that I like to tell about how we started the PTA there, because When I first came to Fort Worth ISD, I came with Teach for America, actually. I was a core member. And my placement school was Dolores Huerta Elementary in the north side. And at the time, they didn't really have a parent group when I started there. And during my first year teaching there, the principal actually came and talked to me. And she's like, hey, could you help a group of parents get a PTA started? And for me, PTA, I was just like, the what?
Yeah.
Growing up, my parents were not involved in any of those things.
Right.
I actually was a student in Fort Worth ISD. I don't know if they even had a PTA at the time, but again, that was not something my parents were involved with. So my parents, they worked full time. My mom had 2 jobs. If there was a parent-teacher conference, my mom was like, are you passing? Are you good? I'm like, I'm good. She's like, let me just sign the paper. That was it. As long as we weren't in trouble, like my parents didn't really have to show up at the school. So to me, this idea of a PTA, I think Taylor and I talked about this, is it muffins?
Exactly. I thought it was like bake sales and stay-at-home
and
parents who are just, like room parents going on field trips. I don't know.
That was my preconceived notion too. I think a lot of people have this idea.
Which are great things, but it's so much more than that.
Yeah, they have this idea that it's like, oh, it's for, those moms who can just be at the school, like making cookies or whatever. And so when she asked me about this, my first year teaching her, I was like, I don't really have it. I had a son, I was a mom, and he was at Dolores Huerta Elementary. Like I had brought him with me. He was a kindergartner there, but I was like, I don't know about this, right? And then she's like, no, you'll be fine. A lot of people in PTA just get voluntold into it, right? Like, you'll be fine, you got this. And so I started doing my research, and I found out like, okay, what is this organization? I like to just kind of be knowledgeable about what I'm gonna do before I start doing it, right? So I did a lot of research, went online, and I was like, oh, okay, so it's like a parent, teacher, and community member group.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm a teacher at Dolores Huerta, and I'm a parent at Dolores Huerta. I'm like, I think this could probably, I could probably do this. And so at the time, it was literally just 3 other moms and myself. And we didn't really have, we just went at it. Like I brought I remember printing out the stuff from the internet, being like, this is from Texas PTA. Let's just follow the rules. These are the bylaws. We went through them, we read them together. I had to do a lot of translating at the time because back then, this was back in 2013. They still hadn't been really good about providing Spanish language resources. They're really good about it now. We have a lot of Spanish language resources through Texas PTA. But I had to do a lot of translating, and just kind of explaining like, this is the process for how we get things done. And I remember being really I wanted to make sure we did it the right way. Mm-hmm. Like I was like, we're gonna do this the right way, right? After the first year or so, once we got the structures established, I kind of changed my approach because I was like, what we really need is people that want to do this, that want to be involved. So this is really more about building relationships, right? And at the time, I think I was lucky that I was just in the right place where I could build a lot of really strong relationships with the staff because I wasn't a new employee there. They started to get to know me. By then I was in year 2, year 3. They knew me. My son was there. I knew the parents, I knew the parents of the kids that I taught. So I was like, I can leverage a lot of these people through the relationships that I have and just say, hey, we're doing this thing. You want to help, And I think it was a lot easier for them to come in because they knew me and because they knew like I wasn't gonna, put them in a spot that they couldn't, do whatever it was. And so I was like, together. We started over the years, every year, just kind of learning together, learning the different positions. Like, what does it mean to be a president of the PTA? And they kept trying to nominate me for president. I was like, guys, there's a 2-year limit.
Yeah.
Right. And so I was like, somebody else has to step up. And they're like, no, we can. I was like, you can do this. Like, I learned it. Like, I'm still here. I'm not just like checking out. Like, I'll take another role. Like, I'll do something else. But that is how we started building parent and teacher leaders because there's a lot of other teachers too that wanted to be involved, but they weren't sure, like, do we just, like, I have a full-time teaching job. That's a lot on my plate. And I was like, look, this is not about having to be here all the time. we made it basically accessible for everybody to plug in whichever way they could feel like they could plug in. I'm happy to say after the 10 years that I was there at Dolores Huerta, it became a really high functioning PTA. It's one of our highest functioning PTAs there. They now have over 200 members. Wow. Their budget went from I think we started with $400. Yep. And now, they have $20,000 that they can use. Yeah. So it's been a really cool journey just to see how we can bring in the parents, bring in the teachers, and everybody kind of benefits from the situation. But more than anything, how they start learning, the different things. It just opens up a lot of doors.
Yeah. A shorter story, but another example. We got involved because my kids came home as pre-K my oldest are twins, just in tears because they had missed some theme day, I don't know, cowboy day or something. And we were like, sweetie, we didn't know. We just didn't know. And I ended up calling the school and asked, hey, we missed this. I never saw a flyer for it. How, as a new parent, how are we supposed to know about this? They're like, oh, you're supposed to follow our Facebook page. I'm like, didn't even know you had a Facebook page. And so one of the things that any sort of parent organization, PTA is just one version. There's PTOs, which are just, they're their own independent, just not affiliated. PTA is a national, then state, then council level structure. There's booster clubs, any of these, organizations that bring families in coordination with the school. I don't know the hard stats on it, but I have to imagine that they result in stronger, engagement and support and hopefully outcomes for those students in those schools. And so when I gave the feedback to sweet assistant principal at the time that this would be helpful information to know as a new parent to the school, that these are the primary methods of communication for parents. And she's like, that's a great idea. Would you like to be on our PTA board? And so that honestly, communication between the school community, the school professionals, right? The teachers, the admin, I think have really great intent and sometimes don't realize that there's a gap in communication to the parents. And so by having a formal organization made up of people from within the school, both the admin, the teachers, and the parents, we meet, the board meets once a month. We have 4 general meetings for you mentioned 200 at Dolores Huerta, 2 general meetings each semester. It just creates the formalized forum for the parents and the community members and the staff to come together to say, what's going well, what needs do we have, to ask questions. It's created a lot more. It gets the parents on campus. There's so many benefits that a parent organization.
And I love this
provides.
idea that I hadn't thought about as much as just developing parents as leaders.
Yeah.
And what an important role that is. So I think both of what y'all have just described in your own experience is really what y'all did there is what the impact program is really trying to do at scale. So can you kind of describe, I'm not sure we've really exactly described what y'all are going to do exactly with the impact program.
So once we got it going off the ground, we really identified 3 big buckets that we were going to be focused on. Funding, we've already spoken about at length, and that was one. How can we,
get funds to the schools where their need is bigger than their what they have.
And of course, because of all the ways that PTA has the rules, we had to bring it to the council level. So funding is one. The next one was volunteer base. Yep. Right? Because sometimes it's not about we need some funding, we just need people. We need people to come, to help, to volunteer, and if people have full-time jobs or they do So how can we get the people power where it's needed across the district? And then the last one, which to me, I was that was my jam. I was I'm most excited about the mentorship aspect of it. The know-how, because it's I think it's important not just to say, okay, here's a check for, so you can get that off the ground, or we're going to send you 10 people to do that one event. That's great. And that is helpful. But over time, what I found was most helpful, even, with my experience at Dolores Huerta, is I'm not going to be there forever. Right. I can't be there forever. But I need to make sure that the people who are going to continue this, to make this sustainable, have the knowledge, have the experience, have just the know-how and the confidence to get the resources that they need moving forward, and then to turn around and teach other people. And so then we thought about this mentorship aspect of it. And now moving forward, and one of the things we're going to talk about this summer is like every time somebody requests, whether it's funding or volunteers, like how are we going to put an attached mentorship to that as well? And I started doing that a little bit more in the second half of the school year this year, where it was like, you don't have to formally just request mentorship. Whatever you request help from us in any way, I'm going to attach mentorship along with it.
Right.
We have this, this vision. Fort Worth is at such a, Fort Worth ISD, such an interesting chapter.
Right.
And very acutely, everyone is focused on the areas of improvement that we have to make as a district. And I think that the parent and community involvement can be a catalyst to help the educators get the outcomes that we need to see. And how great would it be to have every campus in Fort Worth ISD have a robust community support system? PTA is just one version. It's the most common, I think, that already exists, and we had a connection to it. But we are the Impact Mentorship Program isn't just restricted to PTAs. If there are PTOs or other parent engagement organizations that want help, we want to help them. Our hope and vision is that every campus across the district would have the wraparound support that it needs. And she is an educator. I'm not. I got involved because I think educators are wonderful, and I'm like, how can I help you? Because I can't I can barely raise my kids. I can't teach them. And yeah, I think that whether it's, and what's been most encouraging, I'll say most encouraging, is the momentum that we've seen over the last year hasn't as much come from other PTAs, like that origin story that I told you about in the near South Side was PTAs working together. It hasn't so much come from that. It's come from the wider Fort Worth community. And that's really encouraging. I think we'll continue. It's like a flywheel. You got to push really hard and slow in the beginning to get certain things moving within, maybe within the other PTAs. But we've had such wonderful reception at the business community, the philanthropic community, non-parents who just are paying attention to education right now on how can they support their local schools. And we're just trying to leverage, because PTA already has so much infrastructure in place, how do we leverage the existing infrastructure to give people the know-how? You just need people sometimes. You just need people to show up. Maybe we can talk about how people can get involved, because that was probably this was our first year, right? We just tested some things. We had lots of small wins. We identified places this summer that our committee is going to dig into and figure out what we can tweak for next year. The funding has shown up in a big way. That's been great. I think we've got good momentum there. We know how to build on that. The mentorship part has been really impactful. The volunteer part that's an area we can make some progress, and anybody in Fort Worth can help support there.
Yeah. Let's talk about how, if people wanted to be supportive in some way of what y'all are doing, they hear this and think they want to help. How can they do that? How can they know about it, and what can they do?
For sure. And I think one thing Taylor said earlier is very important to underscore again. You do not have to have a child in the school or in the school district to be a part of PTA or to be part of the Impact Mentorship Program help or anything like that. Like, the wider community is what we're trying to mobilize right now. We have our website right now is through the Fort Worth ISD Council of PTAs. So the Fort Worth ISD Council of PTAs website is www.fwisdpta.org. And then if you go to that's the main page. There's going to be a little tab at the top that says Impact. You click on that.
In all caps. Impact in all caps. Can't miss it.
And in that page, that's where you can click like, oh, I want to donate. Like, if you're like, I just want to donate money and help out the cause, you can do that. Or like, I want to volunteer, which is what we really need right now. Like, hey, how can I help? I can donate some of my time. It doesn't have to be anything long-term. We basically just take your information, what's your availability, and then whenever we have a request, we just start contacting people. It's like, hey, we need somebody on Thursday afternoon from 4 to 5. Like, are you available? So we will always check on
that's
you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you are, great.
That's it.
To learn more about the Fort Worth ISD Council of PTAs, check out their website, FWISDPTA.org/impact.
Yeah, so when you talk about volunteers, what would be the kinds of things that people might be doing if they're volunteering?
So there's lots of requests that we've had this year already, and it's anything from, I think at one time somebody needed a couple of people to come to do the Santa pictures,
Okay.
So like it's Christmas time, they bring Santa to, to the school, kids take pictures with Santa, but we need volunteers to come in, line up the kids and
Right.
like bring them back to the classroom, stuff like that. So that's one of the volunteer projects that we did.
Yeah.
And then you did another one, right?
Yeah, and I want to just jump in there because there's, we all, Marisol's a professional educator. We all care very much about the academic success of our students. And you may be like, oh, Santa pictures, this isn't moving. Like, I want to make a difference in education. Like,
Right.
that's not moving the needle. But by the local needs, right, the people in that school community said, this is going to be something that we think that our families would really appreciate. And they do different things like that, whether it's pictures with Santa or a field day or just different events that happen oftentimes, sometimes during the school day, but most of the time not outside of the school day, because the school day is for instructional periods. It brings families on campus.
Yeah.
And when families are on campus with teachers and with the admins, it creates familiarity. It makes them feel more welcome to come to those parent-teacher conferences when those more formal conversations are needed. It gives a space for relationships to get built between other parents, between the staff and faculty and the students and the parents. And so I know it can seem frivolous for having needs like, I don't know,
Right.
that, but it really does build community. It builds community.
Yeah, and let me put my educator hat on and my restorative practitioner hat on. There is a lot of research. Like, I know you mentioned it. There really is. I did a program through the Dolores Huerta PTA back in the day. We called it Parent University. Marta Plata, who was part of the Fort Worth ISD, started it at Manuel Jara Elementary. I worked with her directly. She mentored me on how to do that program. So I ran the Parent University for several years at Dolores Huerta. And that program is based on raising highly capable kids, which is research based on the Search Institute's 40 developmental assets. And basically, again, long-term study showing that all of these assets, the more that kids have, the more successful they will be later in life. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we're talking beyond academics right. included, but everything is like, how can we
highly capable, like
make kids, highly capable, successful later on in life. And a lot of the things that kept coming back, we would study those 40 assets. It was like parents being involved, parents being in school. Mm-hmm. And so, coming back to this idea of like, oh, it's a carnival. Oh, it's a concession, for during a sports event. Oh, it's a Santa
book fair.
Pictures.
We needed people to work a book fair. A senior day. These are other, going back to the volunteer needs that had been requested. Those are examples.
These are all examples. But what's happening kind of in addition to that, those events, is, like you said, the relationship building with the teachers. Mm-hmm. Teachers are part of this. They're a huge part of the PTA. It's not just like, oh, they're on the side. Not only are they members, but
they're the T in
the PTA, right?
And they can serve in every formal board role except treasurer. You can't have a staff member being in charge of the pocketbooks, but that's really it.
Yeah. And a lot of the times they are board members, but even if they aren't, just the fact that they're present. Think about it this way: I show up to Loteria night. I show up to the carnival, right, with my kid because it's from 5 to 7. I'm off work, I can come, right? Oh, hey, I run into some other parents that I know that they're selling nachos. Great, I'm gonna buy some nachos. Guess what? I also ran into my kid's teacher. Oh, now we're just gonna have a conversation. This is not a parent-teacher conference. Yeah. This is not like your kid's in trouble. This is just, we're having nachos and we're gonna play some loteria, right? I start building that relationship with them. I start getting to know them. And this is one thing that I really leveraged a lot when I was both part of the PTA and also teaching. All of those parents knew me in that way. I think they knew me first as maestra, like part of like the PTA, rather than, we want my kid to be with you. Why? Because they know me already. We've had a relationship over the years. So whenever something did come up with that student, like, I'm noticing some struggles here. That conversation was so much easier and more fruitful, right? Because now I'm engaging that parent in a totally different register.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. I really appreciate what y'all are doing and also for talking about it with us today. There's a quote that I've been thinking a lot about lately from St. Augustine, and it is that hope has two beautiful daughters. Their names are anger and courage. Anger at the way things are, and courage to see that they don't remain as they are. And I just think that anger is a strong word, but you could even think about dissatisfaction. Like you guys saw a situation which was a disparity among schools and parent groups in our district and city, and you were dissatisfied with that, and then you had the courage to do something about it to make sure that it doesn't remain that way. And I think that's what y'all are doing with this impact program. I really appreciate it. I'm glad that we can be supportive of it, and glad to have y'all on here to talk about it today. So thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us. Yeah.
This is a Fort Worth Education Partnership production. To watch Paying Attention, subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also listen to Paying Attention wherever you get your podcasts.